Hey guys, what's going on? I'm Ben Bateman.
And I'm Andrew Guy.
And we are
The Action Guys.
We're here to talk to you guys about who is the more definitive director of our generation, David Fincher or Christopher Nolan. We'll see you guys in just one quick second. Here we are. It's episode 2.
It's episode 2.
Yeah.
They gave us the green light, as they say.
I can't believe they were dumb enough to give us the green light to do this
idiots.
shit.
We've locked the door. They can't come in. They can't take us out. Holy crap.
This is exciting.
It's really exciting.
Yeah, we did a pilot last week, or I guess we're filming this. We filmed that last week. You'll probably see these about a week apart. It was for Hunter Killer.
Yeah, it was
Gerard Butler.
Yeah, Gerard Butler. Just us talking about him for a long time. And I think it was somewhere between probably this much film knowledge and like this much of our impersonations of Gerard that got us the gig.
I agree. Yeah. I watched back our impressions of Jerry B several times. I enjoyed it.
It was very good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now we're on the Collider Network. We're on the, so you guys got to we got to say all these new things. You guys got to subscribe to the Movie Talk feed. You guys want to check out Podcast One if you're an Android user, like myself. If you're not, what do you idiots use over on Apple?
It's a little company on Cupertino. It's Appleware.
Oh, and you guys can just go into Apple's store and just type in anything.
It's on the cloud.
Oh, it's on the cloud.
Yeah. So you guys can subscribe on Podcast One, Apple Podcasts, all the places. You mentioned we are on the Collider Network. This is actually the Movie Talk feed. So if you guys are hearing this, you're probably hearing this because you enjoy the show that breaks down movie news in a very, very organized way. We're going to just take a big dump on this mic right now.
Look, we had to do our intro 3 different times, okay? We worked together for almost 4 years. And I think the very last thing we have to plug is the actual Collider podcast YouTube channel. So we're on all of those things. We are so excited. We've been big fans of Collider for a long time because of the Movie Trivia Schmodown. And like Ben just said, those idiots gave us a show.
Yeah, I mean, you guys may know us actually from the Movie Trivia Schmodown where we play Dastardly Drew Guy and Ben the Boss Bateman.
Dude, you have a match.
I have a match, yeah. It's I think I will be playing in the first round of the singles tournament up here pretty soon because I beat both Janine the Machine and Lon Harris in the gauntlet. I had to play them both back to back.
And you know who you have to play.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have to play Clark Wolf.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's my enemy after the live event. Yeah. She's our enemy.
I mean, look, I've lost to Clark.
I know.
I wasn't pleased about it.
I know. But that's neither here nor there. What we are here to talk about today is something that you and I have discussed for a very, very long time because there's a lot of directors of our generation. There's a lot of directors. Excuse me. Let me rephrase that. There's a lot of directors that people of our generation adore. The Spielbergs, the Camerons, the Tarantinos. But really, when you talk about people that are our age, 30, born in 88, like you said, Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction came out when we were less than 8 years old, less than 10 years old.
Yeah.
And it's ahead of our time.
And also, I mean, I think that there's an important line that you have to draw when you talk about these directors because there are auteurs who are like got these guys that have like really, really well-loved films that are seen by a very small audience. Mm-hmm. And then there's the moment that those directors either early in their career or late, like break in a way where their movies become events. Right. And that's what Fincher and Nolan have become in our lifetimes is, in the very beginning, right? Like David Fincher's first movie, he gets Alien 3 and, it's the Alien franchise. He loses creative control. It's a whole debacle. His next movie's 7.
Right.
2 movies later, he does Fight Club. He had made, by 6 years in, he had done 2 of the defining movies of the 90s. On the other side of the coin, you've got Nolan, and he comes up a little slower. He does Memento, but then he rips off the Batman trilogy just a few years later.
And then in the middle of it, he does Inception. And then when he finishes, he does Interstellar.
Yeah, he defined the superhero genre before it was even supposed to be what it is now. Like MCU taking it to a whole other level. But these 2 guys are responsible for, I would argue, a 24-year-old filmmaker today probably grew up watching their movies wanting to be them. Like they grew up watching Spielberg.
Like we'll be talking about these guys like we talk about the Scorseses in like 20 years.
I already feel we do, but like they don't have the elder statesman feel
you need
yet.
to have. You got to have the decades and the generations of that catalog. So it's really tough, man. Like, how do you actually break down and decide who is the better one between these 2, other than just being like, well, I like this movie more?
100%. And I mean, look, full disclosure, guys, you're gonna listen to us and watch us do this, and we had to have the conversation off camera beforehand, like, what stance are you going to take? And it's pretty ambiguous.
Well, because I'm pretty sure we both know but we both didn't tell each other, and we're not going to tell you guys till the end.
I said going into the conversation, I was like, I may talk myself out of my opinion by the end of the show because I love their movies so much.
And like in that sentence, when you were telling me that you might talk yourself out of it, in my mind, since I had just finished watching one of their movies, I was like, I bet I could talk myself out of it too.
That's called Inception. I did that.
Did you just incept me?
I incepted you.
Well, Christopher Nolan wins.
So it's definitely an interesting conversation. They've both made so many movies that we both love. And if you guys want to follow along with the conversation, share your thoughts, be sure to tweet at us. You can find me at Ben Bateman Media.
And you guys can find me at Andrew Guy.
And you can find, actually, we have a show, an hour-long show that we do dedicated to one movie at a time called Action Movie Anatomy. It's on the Popcorn Talk Network. We've done like 3 years worth of shows. You guys can check that out. We actually are doing an episode on Fight Club, incidentally, which will probably have aired a couple days before you hear this. So if you want to hear us do a single breakdown of that movie, you can hear that.
Yeah, and that show's Twitter is called @Team Action Show, which I think is really funny. I know. Is that? Did you just look at me to make sure that was correct?
Yeah, because we
always do it, and it is Team Action Show. I had to double check just to make sure. That's what I was doing as you were talking, and then just that look made me second guess myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we'll be breaking that down. I totally forgot what my point was.
I think the point is that if you had to define these directors by one scene in one movie, and this isn't to say that it's the only scene, right? But if you were to think about, like, when you think David Fincher in your mind, or you think Christopher Nolan in your mind, what's the movie scene that gets you the most fired up? Like, this is who this genius is to me.
Well, one of the things that you've said so far that I really loved was that whenever these directors come out with a movie, it's an event.
Yeah, it is.
And I think one of the biggest things about those directors is that they all have a very specific style about the way they direct. Now, it doesn't have to be as crazy as our man Tony Scott, where it's like a little heavy-handed, but you love it.
Nobody's as much of a genius as Tony Scott.
It's clear. We will just cover all of the Denzel Tony Scott movies on this show.
Always, it's simple, yeah.
It's clear that these guys have two very, very distinct styles. Now, you got Nolan and Fincher both have the nonlinear storytelling. They're both very, very good at doing the nonlinear storytelling. However, Nolan loves the fantastical and the big, the grand, like,
it's
magnificent. It's a scope film. Whereas Fincher is much more, he's much more intimate.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, well, okay, that's an interesting word right there. Because intimate, like, I would say both directors are defined by the cold style with which they tell their stories. Mm-hmm. They're very procedural in their beats. Like, the scenes never feel like they're lingering unnecessarily. They always sort of feel like they're just like, okay, this is as tight as they're going to get it.
Yeah.
But I will say that I think the nature of the films that Nolan has taken on have made it just so that we've never seen Fincher direct a Batman movie. He's never done a science fiction epic. I mean, the closest thing was Alien 3, but like, he does murder stories. He does like really, really tightly crafted suspenseful thrillers. Whereas like Nolan does a whole different kind of movie. And so the style that they bring to their movies, I think it's affected by the content. You can't avoid it.
Yeah. And so I think, you and I sat down, we kind of had a conversation about like, what's a scene from either of their entire filmographies that kind of epitomize all the things that make them great.
I'll jump in first with a Fincher moment.
Okay.
And it's the lake murder scene in Zodiac. It's one of the most terrifying scenes ever.
I get chills just thinking about it because it's so gnarly. It's just so gnarly and so real and intimate.
Yes.
And like there's just nothing else happening. It's just silent. It's like the lake water, you know?
Yes, and the way they set that scene up where like they're just like peacefully and like you see him in the background and you're like, oh, I know something so bad's about to happen. And he's like ducking behind the trees.
And she's like, there's someone watching us.
And then when he like ties them up and he's like trying to talk him out of it. And for a second, the weird creepiness is that he almost lets you think that he's gonna get away or something.
He like shows them the gun and he like takes out the gun and the bullets to be like, I'm not kidding around. But then also you're like, maybe he's not, because usually he just shoots him, right?
Yeah, right.
Ugh.
And then the stabbing.
Like, and making them tie each other up and then the stabbing.
Yeah.
And like, so the reason that you and I think that this epitomizes Fincher so well is for many reasons. You know, you get honestly just like the disturbing. He's very, very good at the disturbing. You look at Seven.
Yep.
You look at even the scene in Gone Girl when Neil Patrick gets his throat slit, right? Is his throat slit?
With
like
a box cutter.
Oh my God, with the box cutter and like literally every scene in Seven when you find out one of the sins, like.
Well, oh my God, when they have the one guy and he has to wear the apparatus and he's crying. Like, you think about the things that have been done in that movie, and each of them is incredibly unsettling.
Yes.
And this scene is the same kind of thing. I think the other thing, David Fincher is notorious. He's notorious for being known for doing like 75 takes. You've heard actors talk about this a lot.
Yeah.
And it's because he has some just like incredibly meticulous idea of the way he wants the scene to feel and look. And unless he gets it exactly, he just knows from watching it happen he's not going to be happy.
Yeah.
So he'll do scenes 80 times, which is why I found out as I was doing my research that Fincher will CGI full backdrops. Like all of the San Francisco cityscapes, even in the scenes in the city, like when Ruffalo's by a cab, for instance, just the background of 1970s San Francisco is all CGI. And he does that because he wants it to be exactly photorealistic accurate, which is why he does blood splatters and murder scenes with CGI so he can reset the scene over and over again quickly and shoot it 80 times in a day.
Which is like, imagine being the actor on the 80th take of getting shot when there's no blood, there's no anything. And I mean, you're literally just, at that point, you're not even acting anymore.
Right.
You are just going through the motions again until David Fincher is happy.
Yep.
But that scene has all those things in it.
Because the blood at the end, I think, is fake.
Yeah, the blood at the end has got to be fake in the dress, just because that, you know, in his mind, he's like, I'm not going to pay for a new dress, a reset. I'm not going to waste time in case she hiccups in the middle of her scream. Not going to deal with it. I'm David Fincher. I don't do that shit.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that scene again. We've got the grotesque. We've got the intimate. We've got the disturbing. You've got the beautiful, beautiful cinematography. You've got the actual thing that you always talk about with him, which is the technology behind it, in with the CGI and the blood.
And the most important part, which is the suspense and the tension, because that's what Fincher does better than Nolan, like clearly better than Nolan. He makes movies where you are so worried about what's about to happen the next moment in the movie. He makes edge of your seat movies in a way that Nolan doesn't.
Yeah, he pulls that from Tarantino very, very well.
The slow build.
The slow build, and also just the scene. You know it's going to go bad.
Yep.
There's no good way for this scene to end.
Exactly.
And as that lake scene goes,
oh my,
horribly.
At the end when she flips over
and she's just
like stabbing the stomach.
Oh. And like also just being that, there's something about, I mean, forgive me for my ignorance if that's exactly how they killed that couple at the lake, if like the hog tying and everything. But like, if not, you know, as a visual genius, he's like, if your hands are behind your back, your stomach, and like the turning, like just the visual of just like the weakness of that behind it.
I really love Zodiac. I have found as I've gone back to watch it again that I love the pacing of that movie, and I love the way that like it drives. I love the way that it drives Gyllenhaal crazy, and I also love that everybody involved in the case, like even Ruffalo, like that scene when he comes to his door and he's like, "Get out of here, get away from my house."
Yeah,
and he takes him to the diner, and he's like laying it out. He's like, "Great, I'm a police officer. Like, you'll have to be a little more compelling." He's like, "Okay, I'll give you one better." And he's like, "Not 100 yards, door to door," and you see Ruffalo's eyes, and he's like, "Oh my God, all these years later, we actually might." And he's still just like, "All right, fine, give me the files. Like, there's nothing I can do."
Yeah.
And then, like, no spoilers.
And that's the thing. And that was when I called you after, because you'd seen, you really love Fincher, and you actually had gone through and watched all 10 of his movies recently, and I hadn't seen Zodiac in a very long time, really ever. And I went and I watched it. And I remember calling you afterwards and just being like, "Holy crap!"
Yeah,
he took the actual case of the Zodiac and that open-ended, just wanting the end, wanting a conclusion, and literally made you feel the way that those cops must have felt in San Francisco when the movie ended, because you were like, ah.
You're like, I know, and it's funny because you get older. This is actually a very, very interesting point based on our age here. Is, that movie came out in 2007.
Yeah.
And when that movie came out, we were both 19 years old. So I remember seeing it in theaters and thinking like, that was like compelling, but not satisfying, and not understanding why that was important. And all these years later now, when I watch it again, I'm like, this is what made this movie great. Everyone missed it at the time.
Which is why so many people go back. So many of our friends out in that lobby right now talk about how Zodiac is the best thing that he ever did. And it's because as an audience, when it came out, we wanted an answer.
Yeah.
We wanted a conclusion. And that's one of the things about movies that you love is you actually like open-ended kind of vague endings.
Dark, weird.
Yeah. And the Zodiac
quiet,
one is so perfect for that movie. You really walk away from it, you're like, holy shit, this is exactly what happened in San Francisco. And you go into the movie knowing Son of Sam hasn't been caught.
Yeah.
You're not expecting him to get caught anyway.
Right.
But you still are left wanting.
So on the other end of is Son of Sam the same thing? It's not, right?
Isn't it? Yeah. Or no. I mean, the Zodiac Killer, excuse me. No, isn't it?
Son of Sam is a story about the Zodiac Killer?
No.
I've never seen the movies.
That's incorrect.
Oh,
they're two different things.
I thought you just about blew my mind for a second.
No. I just said Son of Sam because I was thinking of another open-ended thing that never ended in San Francisco.
You're right, and that was another murder movie from. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Sorry. My apologies, everybody.
I was about to just pretend that you had said something that was right, and I knew it the whole time.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, if he's not right, then I just agreed, and then we're both wrong.
Yeah, no, we were both wrong.
Yeah.
So on the other end of that, like you said, Nolan
is Nolan. And I think, so, this was your suggestion, this scene. And I agree with you totally on this. I think this is a really, really great indicator. And I'll let you take over here.
Yeah, I mean, so you talk about the things like the nonlinear storytelling, obviously, is the thing that both these guys execute fantastically. But the other thing is that Nolan writes most of all of his own films. So you look at the end of Inception, right? The wake up, the 3-layered wake up with the music going through.
The kick, the car, all of it.
The kick, the car, the hallway, everything.
Yeah.
It is. And the fact that you are sitting there watching it being like, I know exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
I am completely in on this. I know everything. There's something about, imagine being a director or being anyone, just yourself, and someone's like, hey, I have this idea.
Yeah.
And they tell you the idea over the course of 6 hours and you don't really understand what they said because they're trying to explain Inception to you.
Yeah.
And then they're also like, over the next 6 hours being like, I want it to visually look like this.
Yeah.
So they all line up at the same time. So right when this happens, this guy's falling off the bridge and this thing's happening and this guy's waking up and this person's dying and like, it is so masterful. And it's beautiful. Like Inception is so beautiful.
So going over the characteristics in the scene that define Fincher, or Nolan,
yes.
right? One of them is multiple timelines. That's a thing that you get in almost every one of his movies.
Mm-hmm.
He's very famous for it. He loves to do it. He loves to cut between his timelines without indicating 7 years earlier.
Right.
He doesn't ever do that shit.
It's just done by the set design and the costume design and the character and the makeup, all that.
Yeah, very, very like there's a style of editing that I remember noticing when I watched The Departed the first time. It's very kind of similar. Every scene in the movie feels like it's moving faster than you can keep up with it a little bit.
Right.
That's a thing Nolan loves to do. Dunkirk is the probably worst example of it working because it does work, but it's super confusing. But this movie, this multiple timeline and all of them happening at the same time, that's a beautiful, beautiful moment.
And you talk about things like what made Lock, Stock so famous was the fact that you had all these stories converging on the exact same moment, but they were all in the same timeline. They were all in the same place. They're all in the same city. Where this is in literally different universes.
Yeah,
and it's the hallway scene, because he's always done this thing with bending reality.
Yeah,
and I think that in Inception it's done better than it's done in Interstellar, because you watch Interstellar and you're kind of like, wait, what the hell's kind of going on here at the very end?
Yeah,
like you kind of are with it, but you're kind of not. Whereas Inception, you just get it. You get it the whole time. Even at the end, and with his wife, you talk about being scary. It's like Marion Cotillard is horrifying in that movie.
As scary as there is with the broken glass
and the intimacy and their scenes. So it's like Nolan, he gets it. He gets the relationships the same way that Fincher does.
Yeah.
But instead of going in deep on the relationship, he goes in on the room.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I agree.
He sets up the scape of the room. As you said, he's like a bigger picture thinker, whereas Fincher can just focus on two people talking in a room for 2 hours.
Like Nolan, it feels like would never create a cityscape from CGI. It wouldn't be his style. He would shoot the real cityscape in IMAX, and he would spend $40 million somehow creating it.
Like make it look older.
Yeah, that's just what he would do. That's way more his style. It's also funny, like you can see the reflection of Christopher Nolan in the way that his characters act and dress. Like they're male-driven movies. You always see when Nolan is out somewhere, he's always got the suit or the coat with like a scarf. He's always like pretty well groomed. His lead characters tend to be that same exact way.
Yeah. Whereas Fincher's are like much more real people,
way grittier. You always see Fincher in the pictures. You see of Fincher, he's got headphones around his neck. He's got a hat on. He's unshaven. He looks kind of schlubbier. Which
is it's fascinating when you look at that. It's like that's such a great thing that it's like you look at Nolan as a man and his characters, and they really do just follow suit with him.
Also, Fincher is much more fascinated with driving his films with female characters.
That's very true.
Which is, I think, in some ways, I would give him a lot more credit for that because that's such a rarer feat to make films for a mass audience and expect them to sell as well.
Oh, 100%.
Like, he's done it with probably at least half his movies, right?
Right. So he's got Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. He's got Gone Girl.
Ellen Ripley. He's got Panic Room. He's got, like, I mean, almost... Yeah.
That is interesting. Panic Room, Ellen Ripley. Okay, so for the defining scenes of these guys, we've taken the lake scene from Zodiac, one of the most gnarly, gruesome, horrifying to watch scenes, and then you got Inception on the other hand, the 3-layered wake up, which is fascinating, beautiful, mind-blowing. How do you decide which one's better from just that? You can't. You can't.
So we have to go down a path here. We are going to talk to you guys about the critical acclaim and the awards consideration that these directors have garnered. We're going to talk to you guys about the actors they've directed and how they've directed them. And finally, we are going to talk about the peak of their careers and who has the greater peak. Before we get into that, I want to remind everybody here, Drew and I mentioned that we are part of the Movie Trivia Schmodown. We have a little behind the scenes show that we do. It's called patreon.com/Team Action. That's a joke.
That's the.
It's actually called the Team Action Secret Headquarters. Yes. You can find that on patreon.com/Team Action. But we do like behind the scenes match reactions. We do like a fan submitted top 5s. If you guys want to like send us an idea, you want us to break down your top 5 Fincher movies, we will talk about your top 5. Things like that.
Yeah, trailer reactions. We're actually some new suggestions came out today of someone was like, "What's one movie that one of you guys love and the other one hates?" And we'll talk about why we do or don't.
That's a good one.
The yin and the yang. And then the other one was we started doing these live, not live, but they're actually 1-on-1 or 2-on-1 phone calls with a lot of the viewers.
Yeah, we have like Skype calls we're doing. So you check out the levels there. You can see there's a lot of fun ways to interact and kind of get in on the conversation. So patreon.com/Team Action. And one more time before we get into the second part of the show, just a big thank you to Collider for bringing us in here to do this. We've been such big parts of this moving machine in terms of our love for it. We've wanted to be involved in any way we can, and to finally be here doing a show on a week-to-week basis, hopefully.
As long as you guys listen.
We're just really excited about it. So, let's get into these 3 pieces of their careers. I say let's start with directing the actors, because I think it's a nice transition.
It's something that you and I are both very, very passionate about.
You are an actor.
I am an actor.
You travel for your work. You actually have been directed by numbers of people and had to like do take after take. It's not something I've done as much.
Yeah, and it's like you think about working for either of these guys, and it's kind of horrifying. I would definitely be way more intimidated to work with Fincher, though, because I just know about the way that he is, and I also know the way that I am. And it's hard to not get frustrated when you're doing something 50 times in a row.
Who would you rather work with?
Who would I rather work with? Probably Nolan.
Yeah.
I think it'd be sweet to just say I was in a Christopher Nolan movie.
Yeah.
Like, it'd be sweet to say I was in a Fincher movie, too, but, like it's tough. They're both events, right?
100%.
So you talk about directing actors, and, like, I think the easiest, most bare-bones way to do it is just, like, look at awards, and I think off the top of your head, since you're much better at movie trivia when it comes to Oscars than I am, it's like, it's not even close.
Not even close. There's 4 acting nominations on the Fincher side and only 1 on the Nolan side. However, Nolan has the only win.
For Ledger.
Yeah.
Which is
far and away the most impressive performance by any actor in any movie that either one has directed.
And I know that Nolan had a big part in why Ledger was the way that he was. Ledger had a bigger part in why he was the way he was.
100%. And I've seen those behind the scenes bits about it.
You've seen Nolan talk about it. You've seen Ledger talk about it. You've seen him slowly slip into depravity or like just insanity. You watch that really old interview with what's his name?
Tom Waits. Where he stole the voice.
Stole it. Yeah, he's got the Joker book and everything. So like, I would, as much as I love Nolan, I think I have to completely agree that if you look at it from a strictly award point of view, it is Fincher.
Now, here's a really interesting part about this. So both guys came up in the late 90s, right? Mm-hmm. The first movie by Nolan is Following, which is 1997.
Not The Following.
Yeah.
Just Following.
The first movie by Fincher is
Aliens
1993. He starts a little bit earlier, just by a few years. But in terms of where they went in their careers and when people really started to take seriously what they were doing, beyond being sort of like cool genre movies, it's that mid-2000s point. But the difference here is, in 2005, Chris Nolan took on Batman Begins.
Right.
So he goes Begins 05, Prestige 06, Dark Knight 08, Inception 2010. Where at the same time, on the other side of things, you've got Fincher, and he's coming off of his Panic Room debacle in 02. Comes back with Zodiac in 07. A little bit of a, not the best. But he follows it up with Benjamin Button. He follows it up with Social Network, Dragon Tattoo, Gone Girl. Every single one of his last 4 movies has had a an acting nomination at the Oscars. His last 4 in a row. The world is taking him so much more seriously as an art director. It took so much longer for them to catch up to Nolan.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, and it's one of those things, like I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about the type of actors that they've directed.
Yeah.
And it's like they actually all have stellar casts. Like you even look at Zodiac. None of those guys, though, this is the difference, though, is that when Zodiac came out, how popular was Ruffalo? How popular was RDJ? Gyllenhaal was the most popular by far, right?
07, man. You're like right on the edge of all of them. Because like Ruffalo is the Hulk, 5 years later, but he was a character actor that people liked.
Iron Man hasn't come out yet.
Yeah, he was on his comeback trail.
Yeah.
And Gyllenhaal at that point, he hasn't done his he had done 2 years prior Brokeback.
So the point behind this is that hindsight, you look back, you're like, holy shit, look at that lineup.
Yeah.
But then you look at Nolan in the thick of it. Look at Inception.
Yeah.
He had a leg up on Tom Hardy. That's it. Everyone else, Leonardo DiCaprio, Marion Cotillard, Joseph Gordon-Levitt,
Ellen Page,
like Killian, like the whole cast.
Yeah.
Is it their pinnacle, essentially?
Michael Caine. It's just an all-star cast. Now, to be totally fair to him, it's following up The Dark Knight, which is the most definitive movie in the superhero generation.
Yes.
So Nolan is working with like more bullets in his gun. It feels like he had a lot more clout.
So then if you go back to something earlier on, you talk about like Memento.
Yeah.
The acting in Memento by Carrie Ann and Guy Pearce are absolutely phenomenal. But then again, so like one thing that I love to talk about is someone like Darren Aronofsky. Aronofsky takes actors out there that you think about. Like my favorite example is Marlon Wayans in Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah.
Marlon Wayans isn't a good actor.
No.
He's proven time and time again he's just really not.
Yeah.
But you go and you watch Requiem and he will blow your damn mind.
Yeah.
So now the question for me is when you look at Nolan and you look at Fincher, who's a bad actor? Who's someone who's not that great?
Who's in either of their movies?
And I think it's is it just
It's got to be Jodie Foster. Just kidding.
is it just Jesse Eisenberg? Like I know Jesse Eisenberg's a pretty good actor, but then the style of who he is in Social Network is probably just kind of who he is.
I'd say like some bad actors that are in their movie, like Eric Roberts, pretty bad actor. Like
so like my question is like, is there a performance from either of these guys where you look at it and you're like, holy shit, he
elevated him
like to the next level, because that's what a great director does.
I mean, I would say Rosamund Pike to me is the easiest example.
That's a great example.
I've never seen another Rosamund Pike role.
I just don't like her that much.
Where I was that impressed. I mean, like she was fine in Hostels, like she was good enough, but like most of her career dating all the way back to Doom.
Yeah.
I mean, she wasn't very good.
Dating all the way back to Doom.
She wasn't great in Beirut. Like, there's a lot of these movies that she comes out in that you're just like, all right. And he makes her about as good as I've ever seen any actress. She's flawless in that movie.
That is her magnus opus.
Her magnus opus. Is this supposed to be Magnum?
I don't even know what it is.
You just like
You've
the
just
term.
said it for a while, and I just steal it from you now because it sounds hilarious
Magnus
to say.
opus.
Magnus opus. I think I gotta give it to Fincher then. Like I'm trying to think of a role, and this is one thing where I miss having a live audience.
Yeah,
is where I could like ask them, be like, "Hey guys, who's someone in a Nolan?" Because there's someone in a Nolan movie somewhere where they're like, "Well, Rutger Hauer actually is a crappy." Well, he's not, but you know what I mean?
Yeah,
where it would be like that.
Right. I think like good examples, bad actors in their films. Like, okay, so look at
I got a turnaround.
Oh yeah,
taking Gary Oldman and making him like this. That could just be Oldman, but it could also be your director being like, look, man, you are like this everywhere you go, and people expect it. So now if you bring it down to just the best Commissioner Gordon, in your words,
love him
ever, and you've read all the comic books ever, maybe he's that. I mean, I don't know.
It's flawless. I mean, I would say just because it feels like his movies are more dependent on the performances of his actors, I give the leg up to Fincher here pretty easily. I mean, more nominations, more interesting, more like a Nolan movie is as important for the IMAX cameras and the scope of it and the pacing and the timelines.
Prestige. Prestige is probably your favorite Nolan movie.
I don't know. That's a
tough one,
That's
right?
a tough one. I love his movie so much. I love The Prestige. I adore that movie.
So you look at something like that.
Yeah.
Everyone in there is great. He doesn't, it's tough. I think you're right. You just got to give it to Fincher, because even though in a movie like The Prestige, where the interpersonal relationships are more important than the fantastic, I still think Fincher pulls it off better.
Yeah, agreed. And I mean, like, what are the best? Well, okay, because I think that this will segue nicely into our next topic.
Okay,
which is career peak. So,
okay, so
yeah. Well, actually, you know what? this is a better segue because that one is where we're going to finish the conversation. This part of it should be awards because we just talked about Oscar nominations.
Okay.
So I think it's probably more pertinent to talk about how they have been recognized to this point.
I feel like I could just open up, instead of pulling out my phone, I could just open up your brain.
I've got it right here.
I've got my brain right here, actually.
From an acting perspective, both directors have Fincher has 4 nominations, and it's in 2008, Brad Pitt, lead actor for Benjamin Button.
Yep.
It's 2010, Jesse Eisenberg, lead actor, Social Network. Rooney Mara, 2011, for Girl with Dragon Tattoo.
Yep.
And finally, 2014, Rosamund Pike,
lead actress,
for Gone Girl. Whereas on Nolan's side, it's just Ledger.
It's just okay. So here's the other thing. I've heard this from a good friend of mine who is actually a very high up producer, and one of his movies won an Oscar last year.
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan's an asshole.
Yeah.
Who no one likes to deal with.
Right.
And it's because of exactly what you hear from all the people of the Camerons and the Spielbergs and the Finchers. They're assholes. They only do what they want.
Yep.
And that's why they're such great directors. Now, there's a difference between being kind of an asshole when you're on set and then kind of being condescending in person. And I think that's what I gathered from this, is that Christopher Nolan is kind of just like an uppity bitch from literally his words.
Yeah.
And this is like a high up studio exec.
Yeah.
And he says that's why Nolan hasn't won an Oscar yet.
Yeah.
Do you think that's, I mean, I know the Oscars are political. Now, I don't know enough about them to speak on this first-handedly.
I mean, Nolan, from the political aspect, Nolan got his first Best Director nomination. Let me see. Picture and Director for Dunkirk.
Yeah.
And Picture and Writing for Inception. He didn't even get a Best Director nomination for Inception.
Which feels appalling.
Following up The Dark Knight, for him to not get a Best Director nomination in 2010
against the movies that were nominated too,
is ludicrous.
Yeah, we don't even need to go through it because you and I, guys, look it up. Look at the movies that he was going up against. The fact that he did not get Best Director nom is absolutely absurd.
I mean, I know for a fact Social Network and King's Speech both got so. Oh
yeah, King's Speech just won. I mean, I think we could just talk about that. The fact that
Tom Hooper and David Fincher both were nominated for Best Director in 2010.
The fact that Tom Hooper got it over Nolan for like an incredible performance out of Colin Firth.
Yeah.
Again, it's like you didn't give Nolan the Best Director nod for Dark Knight, but you gave it to Heath for the greatest performance ever. So it's like, it just doesn't really make sense when you're using that kind of thinking.
If I had to guess offhand, I would say David O. Russell probably got one for The Fighter.
Oh, yeah.
That would make a lot of
probably.
sense. Got like 6 nominations. It's a really good movie.
It's a good movie.
And I would guess probably the last one is there's a decent chance that Aronofsky got one for Black Swan.
Oh, yeah. That sounds completely correct.
That might be the 5 right there.
Yeah. That just feels, I mean,
they're all great.
They're all great. I just feel like that Nolan should be in there over Hooper.
It's absurd.
It is absurd. Yes. Thank you. So, but all the other awards, it's like neither of them have. Go ahead, please.
So I was going to say the first and only Best Director nomination for Christopher Nolan is Dunkirk.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like
that's the one you were supposed to get after Dark Knight.
Yes, that's the nod you're getting finally. It's like the world is like finally saying, well, you're making a World War II movie instead of making like a science fiction epic or a heady, like weird alter reality or a superhero movie.
Did you like Dunkirk?
It's fine. I've never had any motivation to go back and rewatch it.
Literally sitting in my room yesterday, looking at both these guys' entire filmography, the movies I had seen the least were Dunkirk, Social Network,
Insomnia.
And Insomnia. Yeah. And I literally watched Social Network.
Yeah.
And then I turned on Seven after I'd watched Fight Club.
Yeah.
Because I just, like you said, I have no desire to go watch Dunkirk again.
I totally agree.
And that's the nod. So then on the other side.
So now on the last one is that Nolan did get a writing nomination for Memento. So his initial like introduction to Hollywood, and that's like when the world is still just like, we're going to appreciate this thing you've created.
And that was also, Memento was one of the biggest mind blowers ever in the movie.
It was a game changer at the time. Fincher, on the other hand, got Best Director nominations for The Curious Case of Benjamin Button and The Social Network, his 2008 and his 2010 films.
Why for Benjamin Button? Because the technology isn't just Fincher.
Yeah, I think it's something about...
I've still never watched that entire movie. I've watched 2 hours of it.
It's the least compelling. Well, that's not true.
There's a part in the middle you said is phenomenal.
Yes, it's the least compelling of his good movies.
Right.
Like because like this is a controversial opinion that I have, but I think that David Fincher's second half of his career is greater than his first. And that would mean that I think that his career half that doesn't include Seven and Fight Club is better.
Right, because we're about to get into the peaks, which we're not there yet.
Yeah.
So both these guys have never won Best Director.
Yeah, and Nolan's gotten 1 nomination.
And Fincher's gotten 3?
2.
2.
They're both pretty, I mean, considering that we're talking about 2 guys that we basically believe are the definitive directors of our lifetime.
Right.
And we collectively, between their 20 films, have
2.
3.
Yeah, 3.
Nominations. It is absurd.
It seems. Are we wrong?
I mean, like you look at guys like Spielberg and Scorsese in their prime,
yeah.
and if Scorsese puts out a movie, it has a strong shot to get a Best Director nomination every time. He's gotten nominated like 7 times. Spielberg's been nominated like 6 times. Like,
yeah. What about Tarantino?
Twice, maybe.
I'm looking it up right now.
Maybe once, actually.
It's just crazy to me. So why? Who keeps winning Best Director every year? You know what I
Usually
mean?
just the director of the. I mean,
of the movie.
I mean, Ang Lee has won Best Director twice. You know,
he's a very good director, Ben.
He is. And in both cases, though, his films didn't win Best Picture that year.
Right.
Which is a weird.
Yeah, I always think that's interesting.
Life of Pi.
You made
won Best Director for directing Life of Pi.
I like Life of Pi.
I've never seen it.
It's good. Huh. Yeah. So I guess with awards, can we just call it a wash?
It feels like
Fincher's has more. Nolan has the 1.
Yeah, but Fincher's are largely because of his actors.
Yeah, and then Nolan's are largely because of his actor, but then he also has his writing one, which is the other thing that I wanted to talk about that I think separates Nolan from Fincher.
Yep.
Is the fact that like Fincher makes great movies written by other people. Nolan makes phenomenal movies written by himself and his brother. Now,
yeah, because
Fincher couldn't make The Social Network by himself.
100%. So this brings us into the next important part of the conversation, which is where is the peak in their career? And defining the peak of their career is like, I don't know what you say. If it's the best 3 movies in sequence, if it's the best 5 years, if it's just the best 3 movies overall. Like, I think you got to look at a period of time where they were sort of like the name.
Or like, if you could be anyone in the world, if you could be any director in the world,
Yes.
would you rather be Fincher from this period to this period, or would you rather be Nolan from this period to this period? And I'm already going to tell you, it's Nolan. In the Batman franchise, from Prestige to Inception. Or no, excuse me, from Prestige to Interstellar? Is that too far?
I think I would say more accurately, it's the Dark Knight through Interstellar. It's 08 to 14.
Okay, Dark Knight through Interstellar.
Yeah,
I like that. So that
stretch.
includes Inception.
Yep.
It doesn't include Prestige. But it's Batman Begins, Dark Knight. Oh, no, you're not including Begins. I think you said the Batman trilogy.
I'm saying you start with Dark Knight because that's when he became. That's
because I love Batman Begins so much. But that's fair. That's fair. So we start with Dark Knight because that is really when it became like, this is a god.
Chris Nolan is the guy.
Because when Batman Begins came out, it was like, ooh, this could be something. Whereas when Dark Knight came out, there was most pre-sold ticket sales for a movie ever.
Yeah,
you know, whatever it was.
It was like not even close.
So you go Dark Knight Rises, you know, Inception, and then you have Interstellar in there as well, right?
Dark Knight. You go Dark Knight 08, you go Inception 2010, you go Rises 12, and then Interstellar 14.
So that's the 4.
Yeah.
Okay, so then on the other side of it, you've got Fincher, which is
it's debatable.
It's tougher, right?
This is kind of what I was talking about. Like, which is the portion of his career that you have to give more credit to?
There's the early on, which is Fight Club,
which is 99, 7's 95,
and
the Game is 97,
and the Game,
and that's from the perspective of like respect. Like, okay, because we include Interstellar here, and that movie was not loved by most.
Right.
You include Panic Room here if you're going to do that.
Which is before both, right?
It's 02. It's the last one.
Or the last one.
If you wanted to go with the later part, because he has 4 Oscar-nominated actors in his movies, you would start with Benjamin Button. You would go Benjamin Button 08, you would go Social Network 2010, you would go Dragon Tattoo 2011, and then Gone Girl 2014. I think you've got to go with the earlier one because the 2 movies are so iconic.
Because Seven and Fight Club they are 2 of the biggest movies ever made. Yeah. Like cult classic wise, Fight Club's the coolest movie ever made. Still, I think.
Yeah.
I still think it is. Like, you go back and you watch it now as a 30-year-old man. When I went and watched it as like a 12-year-old, I was like, it still feels just as cool.
I mean, Tyler Durden might be the coolest movie character ever.
The problem is that 7 isn't as good as it used to be.
Oh, see, that's interesting you say that because when I went back to watch them all, I liked it more. 7 was better than Fight Club.
Really?
I went back and I watched them all, and if I remember correctly, I think I put Social Network 1, 7 2, Fight Club 3, and then I want to say Zodiac 4, or maybe it was Zodiac 3.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love 7.
Yeah.
I still adore it. I just don't. Maybe it was just because I was a kid and that aspect of the horrifying was there too. 7's really good, but then I just think Nolan takes this in stride. Because, like, even you can't quite decide between the 2 eras. Because what's the second era? It's the Gone Girl, it's Dragon Tattoo, and
I would say it's like if you wanted to go with the second era, you'd go Zodiac 07, Benjamin Button 08, Social Network 2010, Dragon Tattoo 11, and then and then Gone Girl. You'd have those five.
So if you
movies.
just had to do the two, it'd be Social, Dragon Tattoo, and
Gone Girl?
And Gone Girl, yeah. Which is, I mean, those are three incredible movies as well.
I mean, you're giving 6 years to Nolan versus giving, it's 14 through 07, 7 years if you include Zodiac and Gone Girl. I like, any way you slice it, if you're
so
talking about
hard.
a period of time where they were considered to be like the director, like the only, like just no question, because Dragon Tattoo was a flop. It didn't make any money.
It's so weird because I was so young when Fight Club and Seven came out. To me, it was Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
You know? Whereas as an adult, or as like you and I in the business now, it's like you'd be like paying such close attention to everything Fincher did. So it's hard for me because like...
And he wasn't David Fincher yet, to be completely fair.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I think in some ways there's just no question, because like Nolan gets his shot and he follows it up with Inception, and Fincher never followed up his movie with a better movie.
Right.
Like he never followed it up with like a mind blowing, like
He didn't follow
outdid
up
himself.
Seven with Fight Club. There's
No.
always something in
He
between.
did the game in between.
Yes.
And so there, 4 years pass. I think you have to nod this one to Nolan. Like,
I think you do, just because that run, and honestly, Ledger winning that award, the first ever like superhero movie to win an acting award, was crazy.
okay, so then to add to the point, if we can agree that it's both Nolan, what if you're just taking their top three?
If you're just taking your top three
Who's got
movies,
the better
who's
top
got
three?
the better top three? Oh my God, guys, how are we ever gonna get out of here? I don't know. I don't think I can. If I had to live without if I couldn't live without three movies,
yeah.
I think it still goes to Nolan because I like his style of movie making more. Like for me, it goes Batman Begins, Dark Knight, and Inception. I don't want to live without those three movies. I can live without. Can I live without Fight Club?
God, this is so difficult.
Can I live without Fight Club and Seven? Can I live without Social Network? Like after watching Social Network again last night, like I love. You and I should just have a movie watching fest where it's just like. It's just Steve Jobs and the Social Network and every movie in between that are just like people talking in rooms, incredibly well written by Sorkin, directed by a genius.
Because that movie is like, that's basically what that movie is. It's
Social
just
or Steve?
Social Network.
Yeah.
It's basically just a sequence of like
Different rooms.
quick cut to 13 seconds of movement, like the Winklevoss twins rowing. Yeah. Cut to people talking in a
For
room
you guys
for 3
on
minutes.
audio, I was just rowing.
For me, if it's top three,
the
better top three, it's like almost impossible.
Like if gun to your head, gun to your mother's head, I still be like, no, my mother, not yours. I still like. What did you get? You go with Fincher, didn't you?
Barely. And the reason is because Social Network's the best movie.
You think Social Network is the best movie in the entire catalog of both directors?
Yeah, I do. It's the most rewatchable movie. I think Nolan's best movie is Inception, and I think it's less rewatchable.
Well, see, because I don't think that his movie. Because I think movies like rewatchability, like Dark Knight Rises, rewatchability is like through the roof for me, and it's like one of his worst movies.
Yeah, and I think also that if I like my top four for each is Fight Club, Seven, Zodiac, Social Network, Dark Knight, Memento, Prestige, Inception, and I gotta give the nod to just the fact that like
I think I got to do it too.
it seems Fincher barely.
It seems ludicrous to me that I'm going to give this to Fincher because I like Nolan more. That is my full disclosure. Here it is. This is the part of the show where we tell you who we think is the better director. I think it's Christopher Nolan. God damn it, I really do. But I don't think I can live without. I think I can live without Nolan's movies more comfortably than Fincher's.
That's what I agree too, and I think some of that is getting older.
I'm
some
upset.
of that,
I'm like actually upset right now.
I think some of that is getting older and realizing that the thing in movies that's the most awesome is like intelligent pacing and believable characters, where like Nolan is great, except even when I go back and watch Dark Knight now, it's not as satisfying as it used to be because the ending's kind of lackluster.
Inception and Interstellar are like better almost.
I mean, so now before we get out of here, to maybe last minute swing our decisions here. You know, if you're thinking,
to me, Murph.
if you're thinking about a couple scenes, a couple of the scenes that would swing it in Nolan's favor for you.
Matthew McConaughey sitting in the chair in Interstellar after they get back from the water planet.
The gif of him crying.
The gif of him crying. It's so...
You Gotta Talk to Me, Murph is my favorite scene in that whole movie.
Murph, you gotta fix this
because
before I go.
Because he's sitting there and he's watching in the fifth dimension. This is after he gets transported and he's looking through. Because this is also the scene in the movie that like is terrible because like they follow up this emotional moment with terrible exposition where Tars is like, Cooper, you've understand that they've found a way to represent 3 dimensions in their 5-dimensional structure.
You're like,
you've understood that they like, yes, thank you for explaining, Christopher Nolan, because I know at this point I'd be so fucking confused I would have no idea what's going on. So Tars has to voice over it for me.
You're thinking this now. Yeah.
But his moment before that, when he's looking through the bookcase
and screaming,
and he sees Murph. And he's like, make me stay, Murph. And then
don't let me go.
It cuts to adult Jessica Chastain, and she realizes what's happened, and she looks and she says, "It was you. You were my ghost." And you realize as he's watching the worst decision that he ever made of his whole life, the decision that he knows that he had to make. But he's also realizing it cost him his whole life, and she's realizing that in fact all the anger
was just for her.
He's been there the whole time.
He's been there the whole time. I got chills right now.
That scene is soul-crushingly beautiful to me in a way that I think people don't appreciate in Interstellar for that reason.
It is so wonderful. The scenes, the interpersonal relationships in Interstellar are actually the strongest maybe in any of his films, which is kind of fascinating. The other thing that I want to talk about is in Inception.
Yeah.
Any scene with Leo and Marion is haunting
and heartbreaking.
Yeah. And it's so incredibly well acted by both of them. But then really you talk about the visuals in Inception, and this is why I think at the end of the day Fincher doesn't actually take the cake over Nolan, is because Nolan makes you feel, he gives you that feeling of like accomplishment and fulfillment when you watch his movies.
His movies have a more emotional sweep. Fincher's movies are definitely colder.
Exactly.
I mean, we're waiting for a train, all that stuff. Yeah, that shit kills me.
That's a great line. The other thing too is that Nolan, oh man, what was I going to say? Is that Nolan, I guess I have to let you take the lead for a second. I was going to say something about Nolan and his films, but I just can't remember it.
It comes back to you. So on the other end of things, I think with Fincher's movies, you know, Social Network is my favorite one. I think it's the best movie that he's ever directed. And it has several scenes. The most famous scene in the movie is the opener, where you think at that point...
That's Rooney Mara dumping him, right?
Yeah, and he must have already cast her at that point as Dragon Tattoo, because it came out the next year. And that movie's too big. He had to have already been shooting.
And that's probably why he just used her there quickly.
Maybe.
She's great.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
She's fantastic. And that scene is amazing.
It's very good.
It's so fast.
And when he sees her again, he's like, can I just talk to you alone for a minute? She's like, I think that'd be rude to my friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's great. And then like... So, but this, I love the scene in the courtroom when that lawyer, whose name I can't think of, who's just like the perfect, like that guy lawyer. And he's like,
oh yeah.
And he's like, in January, you sent an email to my clients. He's like, you sent them 16 emails. In the first 15, you didn't mention anything about problems. In the 16th, you did. Were you leading them on? And he's like, it's raining. And he's like, Mr. Zuckerberg, do I have your full attention? He says, I'm under oath and I don't want to perjure myself, so I have to tell you the truth, which is no. And he says, why? And he's like, you know, my clients are doing whatever.
Yeah, me and my team at Facebook, or me and my team are doing things back at Facebook that you and your clients could not, are like not even intellectually capable of
doing.
Yes.
And then he says, you have my attention. You have the minimum amount. Did that adequately answer your condescending question? That to me is like the most like, oh God, this is good.
That's like, it's because when you get older, you realize you can't say fuck you to someone.
Yeah.
That is how you say it. And excuse my language, but that is exactly how you say it. That's like when it's like, as per my last email, that's exactly what that is.
Yeah, I absolutely adore that scene. We talked about the Zodiac scene.
Okay, so then you go back to the visuals of Nolan, and it's like just the sheer beauty of the movies that he makes. Like, how about just The Water Planet? Just The Water Planet in and of itself is a fist pump. Those aren't mountains.
Yeah.
Those are waves. And you're just like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like it.
That shit's incredible.
Yeah. Other fist pumps that I love. I mean, at the end of Fight Club.
Yeah.
When he goes, we have lost cabin pressure. All da 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 da. The moment where Marla goes, Tyler Durden. She says his name to him.
That moment's unbelievable.
We have lost cabin pressure, and then it goes through. And this is one thing that I miss from nonlinear storytelling is when they go and they show
each of the scenes,
all the scenes.
He walks out of the room. He walks into the room. Yeah. All that stuff.
Blows my mind.
Yeah, it's amazing. You're absolutely right. That's one of the great fist pumps. And I think taking it back to Seven for a second, because talking about that movie and that it didn't affect you as much as it did as a little kid.
Yeah.
I mean, Seven has one of the most unbelievable endings to a movie in history. To this day, it still gets me. The whole setup.
What's in the box?
What's in the box? All of it. You don't know. I mean, I tweeted this a year ago when I was rewatching it, or 6 months ago. What do you think happens to Brad Pitt's character after that?
He goes to jail for life, and he
so?
probably gets murdered in jail. Realistically, as a detective,
Yeah.
aren't they in New York or L.A.? It's LA,
I think it's supposed
right?
to be Chicago.
Or Chicago. It's
think.
a bad
They
new
don't
city that he's
specify
gone
it,
to.
though, Yeah.
What happens to a cop in jail, especially murder?
He maybe goes to jail, or maybe he loses. I mean, he murders.
Maybe he's lucky and he gets to go to a minimum security because of his track record and because of the situation. But he murders a man in cold blood.
Yeah. I mean, it's just that part of it is the whole setup of that movie, and the fact that it's spacey, and he was on the stairs and he was the reporter.
Oh, and he bumps, and then and what about the even more beautiful thing is the setup with Paltrow?
Yeah.
The good morning, the leaving for work, the dinner with Morgan Freeman. You learn to, you're if I marry someone, it's Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yeah.
It's Tracy in Seven.
Yeah, that is truly there is almost no, and that's the difference, right? Is that scene, the ending, the Gone Girl.
Yeah.
Nolan doesn't have moments in his movies that have that level of grit.
He doesn't, because the only one, and I just found this out, spoiler alert, Inception.
Yeah.
He's awake. He's actually awake at the end of the movie.
How do you know?
It's been determined online. People have come out and said things, the costume designer even came out and said that there's a different wardrobe for the kids.
Yeah.
Which even that alone.
Got it.
Even that alone, the kid's wearing something different than in all the dreams means that he's awake.
So he got away with it.
He got away with it. That's what and there was a big discussion on our Facebook fan pages, because we have a couple of those for our action movie show and Action Army. It's been decided that he is actually awake, and
So it's happily ever after.
and it kind of ruins it for me. It was my only Nolan movie that has a sad ending, and
Yeah.
I kind of loved it. It needed to not be real, because the way the movie ends is so dreamlike. From the moment he wakes up on the plane.
Isn't Memento kind of a sad ending? Kind of.
It kind of is. He's kind of, yeah. I mean, he realizes for a second that he's crazy. He realizes that he's done it all himself, and then he's just I'm going to kill Ben next. And I'm going to write Ben on a piece of paper, and I'm going to put that piece of paper in my pocket, and it's going to become a whole new fun mystery for me.
That, and also I would say, is the ending of Prestige sad?
Well, so, okay, hold on. Yeah, these are 3 fucked up endings, dude.
Yeah.
This is a lot more bleak than we were giving Nolan credit for before.
Prestige is pretty bad because Jackman takes his daughter and wins.
Jackman takes his daughter and wins, and
Right?
the one of the Bales dies, right? The one Bale has to stay in jail. The other one gets
of the
away.
Bales has to stay in jail.
Jackman ends up being miserable, though.
Wait, is that exactly how it ends? He's got the ball. He says goodbye to his daughter. Andrea! Andrea! Yeah, I love that movie. And then he walks away.
You just love yelling like Jackman.
Yeah, I love it. That was Bale's yell. I'll do the Jackman yell if you want.
All right, we digress, though.
Yes.
I think people could probably tell based off of our energies throughout the episode, but I'm just curious, where are you at right now?
David Fincher's the better director.
And I think Nolan's a better director.
Still, you stick with
I
it.
still stick with it.
I thought that you went in with that attitude.
I honestly, wait, what?
I figured you went in with that attitude, but
I did, and I almost swayed. I really did, when it was, because I do truly believe living without Fight Club, Seven, and Social Network would be harder for me to do than living without Inception, Begins, and another one of Nolan's movies.
Yeah.
But I still got to give it to Nolan.
Yeah.
It's just the way he makes me feel when his movies end. I love the visuals in his movies is absolutely phenomenal and beautiful, and I like Fincher's reality, but the bleakness in his ending sometimes I need that payoff.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Okay.
So that's going to wrap us up, guys. Those are our picks for who is the greater director, who is the better director, whatever you want to call it, here on The Action Guys. Thank you guys so much for listening to the second episode of the show, for watching it. Be sure to subscribe to the Collider Podcast YouTube channel to download on Podcast One or Apple Podcasts here. You can check us out on the movie feed, the Movie Talk feed. I'm Ben Bateman. You guys can find me at Ben Bateman Media.
I'm Andrew Guy. You guys can find me at Andrew Guy on Instagram and Twitter. And please like, subscribe, comment, let us know, because they can do that on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Let us know what you guys actually think of who the better director is, if we made good enough
What's
points
your
or
top
not.
3 for each one?
Oh my gosh, yeah. What is your 3 movies you could not live without from either director? That was a tough moment for me, man.
Yeah, that's a hard one. So thank you guys so much for listening. Thanks again to Collider for bringing us back to do this. We'll be back next week with another show, and look forward to getting us here every week. Check out the Schmodown. Check out Collider Live, all the other shows there, and thanks for watching and listening, guys.
Yeah, bye.
See you, everybody.